Of course, it's not as fast as we are. Hi, everybody. I'm Dionne Mejer with Revenue by Design, and today we are talking about Lead with Soul success stories. And Jeff Nixon is the Chief Commercial Officer for Proponent. He and I have known each other for probably 9 or 10 years at this point. It's been a long time. And Jeff graciously gave his time to be interviewed for my book coming out, Lead with Soul. And with that, we wanted to bring some of the stories and some of the content and context that he shared with us, which is so important as leaders. We wanted to bring that to life for all of you. So Jeff, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure getting to know you. I love the work that you do. I have a soft spot in my heart for everybody at Proponent. And so thank you for that. Thank you for agreeing to be interviewed for the book and sharing what you did. I thought it was not only, I think we talked probably a couple hours about this topic. And so it was inspiring to me to write the book. And hopefully what you're going to share today is inspiring to others as well to really grab their leadership methodology and dial it in for their teams because it's important.
Sure, absolutely, yeah, no, and it was my privilege to be a part of your process of writing the book. I always find those things both just fascinating and to see how people go through that creative process. That's not a gift I think that I possess, in large quantities.
Yeah.
So it was great to see you go through that process, and it was a privilege to just share my story, and hopefully that inspires others to think about their gifts and talents, where they're at in their journey of professional growth and development, quite frankly, probably personal growth and development as well.
Yeah.
And what actions that they can take to make their ultimate dream come true. So
yeah. Yeah, well said, Jeff. I think a lot of it, we just had our Revenue by Design executive group I run for SMB business leaders. And we were talking about the exact same thing this morning, is aligning thoughts and actions and all that good stuff. And we just have such a great group. I'm proud and just pleased with my group of folks because we're all so collegial, I think is the word, and willing to give back at the end of the day. And so with that, let's jump in. I'm gonna take a step back and talk a little bit about your background because it is very, very impressive. So for everybody listening, Jeff Nixon is the Chief Commercial Officer of Proponent. He has an amazing track record. His full bio you can see on his LinkedIn profile will also be in the book. But Jeff has the global responsibility for day-to-day activities of all global sales, customer service, marketing, business development, customer quality, and warranty and repair service functions with Proponent. That is a big job, Jeff. And so you're also the Chief Operations Officer for Proponent previous to this, and you've really helped the organization grow, to put it mildly. I think, is it okay to share your revenue trajectory?
Yeah. So when I started my time with Proponent here, which was a little over 8 years ago, we were about a $380 million business, and this year we're going to finish up just right at $1 billion. So it's been a big move for the organization. Even with COVID in the middle, we lost 58% of our business during COVID. So we had a big downslide, and then we came back up out of that, but I think we came out of that better. And it's really a testament to the 700 or so employee owners that we have here at Proponent that when you stay focused, don't get too rattled too fast, and just stay on the journey, that you end up getting a great result. So it's been my privilege to be a part of that journey here at Proponent over the last 8 years or so.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think one of the things, I'm going to say this, and then I want you to share your story. One of the things that came out when you and I were talking about Lead with Soul, and I kind of did the quote unquote formal interview for the book, was your leadership style and your consistency becomes the consistency of the team.
True. Yeah, that's very true. It's I think that the challenge leaders have is they overthink too much and they take on too much. And so that was certainly my affliction in the past. And so, I've learned that simple messaging consistently really sticks and gets people to build trust in the direction you're wanting them to go. So they're not having to guess, is this just a flavor of the week, or is this actually where we want to head? And I think it also, simplifying sort of what are the truly the most important things keeps both your team on track and, quite frankly, keeps you on track, right? You don't get distracted with all the things that you could get distracted by. And so
Yeah.
I think, what I've learned over my career is simplicity of message, consistency of message, and make sure you're tackling the critical few as opposed to tackling everything that may come across your desk or in your team's day.
Yeah, amen to that, Jeff. I agree with you. It's so easy, especially nowadays, to have the shiny object syndrome, and I'm just as guilty and trying every day to stay focused.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about kind of a success story for you. I know you shared it with me where you really kind of had this moment of living out that principle. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I was, just a little bit of a story to get into that story. I was one who was very driven. I'm a very driven person. I'm very sort of results oriented. It's just kind of how I am. And so, I had some very clear goals for what I thought my career should be. One of those goals was that I wanted to be the CEO of a company by the time I was 40 years old. I set that goal when I was about 24 or 25. And so everything I did was sort of driving towards that eventuality that I wanted to be a CEO by the time I was 40. And so I was, really sort of getting there by being a command and control leader. I had a certain formula of individual success.
Yep.
And I thought that formula of individual success was what I needed to continue to be a successful leader and get to that ultimate goal, which for me was, a certain position of leadership, if you will.
Yeah.
And the good news is that I took my first CEO job when I was 38 years old. So I was able to sort of get where I wanted to be a couple of, check the box, right? I checked that big one off my box or my list, and, it was there. What I found was that while I was able to achieve different levels of responsibility, I really wasn't being successful. And that sort of sounds a bit counterintuitive to most, but the satisfaction of the work I was doing, the success of the organizations that I was with, while my rise was fast, the growth and the success of the organizations I was running wasn't as fast. And so I was getting there, but the organization wasn't getting there with me. And so I got my CEO job when I was 38 years old. I left it when I was 41. I was burned out. I was not feeling successful, even though I had what I would have termed at that time to be a successful run.
Right.
And so, I sort of had to get my head sort of recalibrated, because what I thought was going to happen when I got to that role that I had, for years had sort of envisioned myself in, that was not what I was expecting. It wasn't the outcome that I had expected once I got there. And so, as I shared with you, I took about 3 weeks and went on a road trip and, kind of try to get my head clear, just myself driving all across America and just simply getting clear on the question, do I still like what I do? Do I still want to be? Is that really what I want to do? And remember, I was geared to be a leader, both with the people who mentored me and in my own career mind, for, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
So I came to the conclusion on that road trip, somewhere in the hills, that I liked being a leader, but I needed to change the way in which I was a leader, how I showed up. And that's what got me thinking about this idea of servant leadership. So my success story really starts from that point where I move from being a command and control leader to a servant leader. Now, that change takes time, right?
Yes.
There were a lot of biases and behaviors and beliefs I had within me that I had to work through over time. Quite frankly, I still consider myself still on that journey of being really the servant leader that I want to be at the end of the day. I've made lots of progress, I think, and I'm saying that in a very humble way.
Yep.
but there's still work to be done. So I still consider this sort of a work in progress.
Yeah.
But it was really sort of having that epiphany that really becoming more of a servant leader, as I like to say, be the person who puts the wind in the sail of others, I think is really sort of that philosophical turning point that I needed to get through and then commit to, right? So I could, that sounds great. And that's what I want to do. Yay for me. But you then have to commit to the journey of actually changing yourself so you can change the outcomes that you have. And so, I've really, over the last, that was, 16, 17 years ago, I had to wrestle with and still wrestle with at times, sort of a series of simple questions, which is, what is a servant leader?
Yep.
So what does that mean, right? When I say servant leader, how does that show up and how should it show up for others?
Right.
And they can actually see that in me, right? It's not just talking about it, but they feel it, they see the presence of it, and they can rely upon it.
Yeah.
Because once they have that trust and confidence in who I am, they have more trust and confidence in doing what they need to go do, right? Without having to look back and wonder, is this really what he means? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was really key. How do I build trust in others in a different way?
Yep.
So when you're command and control, the only thing you trust is that they're going to do what you tell them to do. And so now I've got to trust that I have to build a different level of trust within myself that helps me give people confidence that you're going to go forward. My job is to push you forward. It may go in a direction that I would myself take, but I've got to let you sort of figure that out for yourself.
Yep.
And then lastly, as you get this servant leadership role, I think sometimes when people hear servant leadership, they think that's a passive level of leadership. It's actually not. It's very proactive. And there are times where you've got to step in and make the call.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're not abdicating your responsibility. So I had to figure out for myself, where's the line within me that says, let them continue, and let myself continue doing good work through others. And where's the point to where for myself and for my team, I have to go, okay, I've heard you all, that makes sense, but here's what we're going to do, right? You still have to be decisive. So you don't have to give up decisiveness to be a good servant leader. And I think once people understand that and being transparent about that with your team, that this is my style, this is my approach, this is what my expectations are of you, and my job is to put the wind in the sail. But when I do that, you now have an obligation to use that wind in a way that helps, forward your work, the work of the organization, the things we want to do to grow our business and build relationships. So that was kind of the big turning point. And I think that journey has sort of had stages. Mm-hmm. As I think of myself, it's sort of, I've had these stages where, I've had to sort of consciously sort of step back from things or consciously not tell people what to do.
Yep.
I've had to build a circle of people who I trust, who will call me out when I do that. Yep. And it doesn't seem to comport with what I'm saying or wanting.
Yeah.
And those, by the way, those people can be in your personal life and in your professional life. It doesn't have to be just people you work with.
Yeah.
I still have mentors, even what I would, with a smile on my face, say this late stage of my career.
This season of
people that I have to go talk to. And so that's a real gift for me to have, that I've got a few folks that still be true to what I want to do. And I think as you go through this journey and you get more comfortable with it and you start to see the result, you then are able to work on the most important things that you really need to work on, which was one of the problems that I had when I was command and control leader. I worked on everything. Yeah. I was involved in everything. I knew the details of everything. And as you grow in levels of responsibility, you just simply can't know all the areas of your business intimately. And you have to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't know, but I trust that my team does.
100%.
So, yeah. So, servant leadership, I've had to learn how to be more vulnerable without giving up, who I am. I have to be more honest, actually, with people than I think I had to before. I had to be more transparent, more honest. And, I think what that's done is that's built inherent trust in me with my team, because again, of sort of the consistency of that approach, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So Jeff, I so much of what you just said has just got my brain going. As you well know, we've talked about
Sure.
this for so long. And so one of the couple of things I hear you talking about, if I had to theme it out in my head, is you're talking about consistency. You're talking about how are you walking the walk and talking the talk. I think
Mhm.
what else I hear you saying is discernment. And
Mhm.
that was my first place word. My number one word of the year this year was resilience, and which is not only for plants because I kill those, but
Yeah.
it's really for are we not pivoting because I think that word was overused, but
Yeah.
are we evolving in
Yeah.
such a way?
Yeah.
And then the second place word was discernment,
Yeah.
and I think that's the muscle that people don't teach us, to your point. And it's easy to go black and white and say, oh, I'm a servant leader and I abdicate all these things versus I'm going to use my discernment muscle to figure out when, how, and why I make decisions and how I let my team know that. Can you add on to that a little bit? How did you
Yeah,
kind of
no, I actually think you're right. I think both those words are connected, right? I mean, again, this is where, becoming a servant leader um, is uh, is a process of success and failure, right? And to me, the only failure you have is not learning. So to me, really, the outcomes are success and learning. And if you don't see either of those two, then it's failure. Then because you haven't picked up anything along the way. So it's an iterative process.
yes,
And so, but you have to be discerning so that you can be, more engaging, more authentic, and focus on the things that you need to work on, right? But at the end of the day, you have to stay with it, right? You have to keep moving forward. And it sounds like a simple idea, but it's awfully hard to do because those biases and behaviors and beliefs want to pull you back, right?
100%.
They want to take you to a place where in your mind you think is safe, but
Hmm.
that's actually not safety. Safety is forward, right?
Yeah.
I tell you that I tell I have a simple analogy for my teams. I've used the same analogy with my children, which, no great story of humankind is absent the element of forward movement.
100%.
So if
Yep.
you think of any of the great stories of humankind, whether they are political or religious or historical or, pick one, athletics, there is always something to overcome to get to a better place.
Yep.
And you only do that if you go forward, right? So I really embrace that. That's how I view myself. That it's in my journey of learning and of my journey of being a better leader and inspiring that in others is to say you've got to keep moving forward. Even if you didn't get the result, you've got to keep moving forward. Learn from it and move forward. But
Yep.
don't stop. Nothing
Yeah.
happens great. Nothing great happens when you get stuck in the mud. You got to get out of it.
Seriously, I think that is really well said, and I think in the book Lead with Soul, I sprinkled in high level information from a neuroscience perspective because
Mhm.
again, I think sometimes as leaders we think, oh, our team's got it, we don't need that, we're good, right? We don't need consistency. I don't need to consistently hold my one-on-ones. My team doesn't want to talk to me,
Yeah.
and I get it, you know what I mean? But it's I think a couple of things to talk about that from a neuroscience perspective is when we are doing something new, our brain sees it as a threat and pulls us back, which is why
Mhm.
comfort is the exact opposite of forward movement. And I think to your point too, there's a way to not trick our brain, but talk ourselves into it at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And so I love the fact of what you're talking about is being kind of the goose in there, right? Like to just kind of goose people along a little bit to keep them going. And
Yeah.
mindset, the
Yeah.
consistency of mindset, the more consistent we are, the safer we feel, right? Some people don't like the term psychological safety, and I'm not a big fan of it either because I think it's a blanket term that does
Sure.
injustice
Yeah.
to the amount of work it takes to be an effective leader and good and not quite frankly an ass,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you have to have the endurance of the emotional up and down you're going to feel, right?
Yes.
It's funny. I'm doing right now sales training for my group around the world. So I just came back from Europe last week. I'm heading to Asia on Sunday to do it with my Asia team, and I
I
did it with
love it.
my Americas team a few weeks back. And I've told them that the whole point of the training is not to teach them a new skill. We've done a lot of that over the last 2 years,
Correct.
but it's actually using the skill. And I'm going to challenge your biases, your beliefs, and your behaviors in a way that is going to make you feel uncomfortable. But it's in that discomfort is where learning and growth actually takes place. And
Oh,
so it's funny, and so part of this training is actually videotaping them doing mock sales calls.
I love
And
it.
so it's a 4-day program, and they see what they look like on the first day, and they see what they look like on the fourth day, and they see a marked difference in that. But I can tell you, Dionne, the first day they're feeling pretty good. By the end of the second day, they don't feel so good at all, and wonder,
No.
why are we being so mean? And then, but I tell them, stay with it, because by the fourth day, you'll see the result. And so we have that as leaders too, right? We see ourselves a certain way, and then it gets challenged, and it's going to force us into a place that we're not comfortable with. But we've got to have that grit and determination to come back out of it, learn from it, apply what we're learning in a way that's different than what we've done. And then from there, we're going to see a much different result. So my journey of servant leadership was, okay, I believe. And I was like, okay, rah, rah, let's go do this. And then I actually started doing it, and man, did it feel terrible and uncomfortable. And then
100%.
kind of got out of it a little bit. And then something else challenged me, and I had to go back down into the hole again and come back out again. So it's this constant up and down. But when you look at it over time,
Yeah.
your ability to be effective comes this way, right? It is a consistent upward trend. And so I see where I am today, and I say this again in a humble way. I look at kind of like what I did with my seller and said, here's day one, here's day four, take a look. Well, I look at, here's where I was 16 years ago, and here's where I am today. I see the difference that I've gone through in the transformation. And so now in this stage of my career, my job is to help teach others how to do the same.
Yeah.
Which was just really the timeliness of our conversation and you writing the book.
Yeah.
Because I'm at a stage now where I know that I'm closer to the end of my career than I am to the beginning of it.
Right.
So I feel an obligation to sort of share my experience and let people do with that what they may, right? Again, how can I share my experience and maybe put a little bit of wind in somebody's sail?
Yep.
And maybe that pushes them forward in a way that's a little different, a little bit more fulfilling.
Yeah. I love it, Jeff. I love what you're doing. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for being the wind in somebody's sail today, for sure. So thank you for joining us, everybody. As you can see, I don't know about you, but I love my network, and that's such a clinical term for the collegial relationship that you and I have, that we all have. So please feel free to reach out to Jeff, connect with him, make sure you get on the wait list for Lead with Soul. We're in the final round of editing. My editor is not happy because I just wanted to change the entire cover. So we're going through that. But the book, you can get on the wait list for it. It will be coming out shortly. It will be hard copy as well as an audio book. And to what Jeff is saying, this whole book, the whole premise is to help us as leaders articulate our values and our operating rhythm and our standards of excellence that we are holding ourselves and our team accountable to. Because without that, they're just words and it's just noise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Start with yourself, right? That's what I tell my team all the time. Start with yourself.
Always, always, always. So thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. Jeff, thank you so much. And we will see everybody soon.
Wonderful.